Way down yonder in the Indian Nation, I ride my pony on a reservation in the Oklahoma hills where I was born.
Good afternoon. We're on our second podcast of the day. I hope everybody's got it. We got a great audience on Rumble. I'm shocked because Rumble has been so yicky for us, but hey, we got a bunch of them on there today. So happy to see you guys. We have our special. Notice I put it down here in green this time, special time. We have our special today where we're going to talk to our friends at PIKE OTA because there have been a number of, I'm going to say icky. I mean, I don't know. That's the terminology I'm using. Things that have been going on that I think we probably need to know a little bit about. So, and who's better to go to than our friends at PIKE OTA? So I'm going to bring in our friend Whitney Mullica. Good afternoon,
Hello.
Whitney.
Hey, Jenny, how are you?
I'm just fine. How are you?
Good.
So, should I say it's your birthday today or not?
You can.
Don't you love it when people do that? Well, but didn't you just say that? Yeah, I did. I worked it in there. Happy birthday.
Happy
3 years to you.
After 3 years of trying to deal with Oklahoma politics, I do feel halfway to 70. So it's it.
Well, I feel older than that. So and after 15 years. So, and I don't know that either one of us feel any better today about it. So you have a friend that you'd like to introduce today.
Yes,
on the show.
Yes, so our schedule's finally coordinated and we get to bring on Dr. Amy Cerato today.
Nice. And what does Dr. Amy Cerato do at PIKE OTA?
She's our president.
Oh my goodness. Okay. We have the actual president doctor on today. So I'm going to bring her on, the president, Dr. Amy Cerato. It's nice to meet you, Amy. How are you today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on.
Well, we're very excited to have you on. Whitney's talked about it for a long time. We've just never seemed to be able to make anything happen. So I'm so glad you're with us today. So, I think we talked briefly before we all got on about what a wonderful time we've been having with the Oklahoma legislature this session. How great it seems to be going, right?
Something like that. The complete opposite. So that's the 180-degree rule.
Yeah.
It's been exceptionally frustrating. And, PIKE OTA has been up at the legislature and involved for 3 years now. And this is the worst session that we've had. It's so confusing and convoluted, intentionally so. And so many bills are getting taken over by people that shouldn't even take them over. And we've had to kill more bills. In fact, I just got word today, right now, that the bill that I've been trying to kill has been killed. And so now I can sleep tonight because we had all these grand plans of getting great legislative oversight on the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority, and then all of a sudden our bills became their bills, and we had to turn to the legislators and say, okay, forget it, just stop. And thankfully that happened today. Finally, our last one we had to kill, which is so frustrating for the people because we've spent all session trying to figure out what committee our bill was going in, what language was going in. And so half the time when our bills went to committee, we had no idea what the language was that was going in because it got changed overnight and not updated on the system. And so the system that Kyle Hilbert and his CEO boss, Kel Kelly, put in play is terrible for the citizens of Oklahoma. And it needs to stop and it needs to go back and people need to take control and put the people's house back with the people.
Well, I think Sarah Van Alstyne says the Capitol media are promoting sound bites of how productive the Hilbert experiment has been.
It's the opposite of productive because you cannot be productive when you're posturing for punishment. And that's what they're doing up there. If you're not stepping in line lockstep with leadership and you're not on board with caucus, then they just trash the people. I mean, you've seen it with some of the people that got in because of the grassroots initiatives that took place in the last election cycle. I think it's a posture of punishment that is highly unproductive.
Well, I would agree with you, because if we're going to talk about Representative Jim Shaw, who had not one single bill heard, don't tell me that's not punishment. So you're going to punish, you're going to sit up in your little high chairs up there, and you're going to crap all over the people that actually put you in the chairs. And it just, I'm kind of done with it. I mean, like I've said on the show before, I'm getting so old that my give a crap is broken, and I don't really care who I hack off anymore. This has been ridiculous. And let's not forget, and let's remind people that people like Tom Gann and others never wanted this structure in the first place. And don't forget, Tom Gann got up on organizational day and said, we've tried this before and it didn't work, and we're going to try it again with a different result. Right. And they said, sure thing, and did it anyway. It's kind of like Sooner Care. Got the same problem with that right now, too. Sorry, I'm sorry. You shouldn't have started me down that road, because it will have a bad ending right now, the way I'm feeling about this.
And one more thing I'll say about it is that I think there's like a handful of people up there that are going to be brave, and they're going to stick to their principles and their morals no matter what. And I value them so much. And you mentioned a couple of them. But then you've got a bunch of people who just want to be in the in crowd, and they want to be popular. And I think it's human nature that if the leadership is posturing to punish people, you're going to be kind of afraid to get into that fray. And I am very disappointed. I hope that we can get local communities and grassroots communities across the state. I hope we can get them activated to start putting some pressure on these guys, because they can't just cower to leadership.
Well, and I don't know, even, and in some cases, I'm not even sure it's cowering so much as I've heard many people tell me this over the session so far. Well, but if I don't, and these are new people too. Well, and I'm really nervous, because if I vote no, they're just going to shut me out, because I already know that if I don't get some votes on these things, they're just going to ignore my bills and they're not going to do anything with it. That's what you said, the posturing of punishment, the way that they punish people. And again, we've talked about this on this show numerous times. If the whole plan of having a legislature is to imbue that with people who are elected by individuals, then you don't go to the Capitol and become part of a caucus.
Yeah.
You don't. You're an individual elected by individuals sitting up in a big building with other individuals. That doesn't make you a group. That doesn't mean you need to be in a group. The only reason for caucus is to shove people into a corner and make them do things that the leadership want for their own ends. It's not, there's no other reason.
Yeah. And there's a lot of virtue signaling going on up there too.
No.
You think about the windmills and the transmission lines and the federal stuff, and everybody came out and said, we hate eminent domain. We're going to write all these bills about how we're going to protect the citizens' private property rights. And none of those bills got through committee. And, what about turnpikes? So you don't want windmills, which I totally agree with. I don't want a windmill or a transmission line either, but how about eminent domain for everything? How about we protect private property rights and not make it about economic development for everything?
Amy, I hate to tell you this, because I don't want to be mean or ugly or anything, but I don't think you understand that economic development is the root of everything. We can't get anything done in Oklahoma if we don't have jobs for kids coming out of school. And, we just have to, this is the only way that we run the state. So I just don't understand why you're pooping all over economic development here.
Yeah, we had several conversations about this with the legislators about economic development, and doesn't have to mean slashing and burning our rural countryside. There's other ways to do economic development. In fact, civil engineering talks about other ways to do economic development, to bring wealth to communities and to create jobs. And it's not about building ring roads around cities, and it's not about creating heat sinks with pavements, and it's not about ruining our water, and it's not about putting up windmills, and it's not about putting up high electric lines. And so I just found it funny because growing up, I was taught that government is supposed to work for you. And I was taught that the judicial system is supposed to protect you. And I was taught that our elected officials are supposed to speak for the people. But when all that eminent domain stuff came out with the green energy initiative from the federal government, and our legislators went crazy, and there's been crickets in our state about eminent domain for the Turnpike, I thought, you know what? They're probably doing this because they're mad that the federal government is getting all the grift and all the money. They want to take it in. The state wants to take it in so they get the grift from all this economic development projects, and I said, and Whitney and I were talking, we're like, how many of these bills are going to get through committee? And we're like, none and zero. And so it's not a Republican or a Democrat thing. It's just a corrupt thing. And it's so frustrating as a voter and a citizen and a private property owner to watch our state repeat history over and over again, and nothing seems to change. And they're taking more and more of our property, and everyone's just throwing up their hands and saying, we can't do anything about it. That's just how we need roads. We need energy. And I just think that something's got to change in our state. And I'm super frustrated with the legislators, and I'm super frustrated with the committee chairs specifically for blocking our bills. We have awesome friends. You mentioned some of them. We've got probably about 26 or 27 people that I think are really, really good up there. But the people that are blocking us, you got to hear some of, I've only been up to the Capitol one time this spring because I would, as Whitney says, I would throat punch some of these people. I have a really hard time. I'm a data person, and I'm trying to critically think through everything, and I don't lean right or left because I lean towards the facts. And it's very hard for me to have conversations with people when they're making propaganda type comments about why they think they should listen to an agency that's making billions of dollars on the back of citizens who are losing their homes. And so we have to change it, and we have to mobilize our voters in a big way to get people there with the backbone to stand up to leadership and say, no, we are going to listen to the citizens. And I don't know how that happens, but.
Well, I think Jason Murphy, I know you had him on recently, and he wrote a really great piece lately about the chairwoman of tourism admitting they're so shameless, which, our political animal fun t-shirts. I think every one of the people.
Yeah, we have to show that we're all.
Yeah, at the Capitol,
Political
we should
Animal
make
Friday.
them all t-shirts that say we are so shameless, because they It's the time to either challenge the people who are co-opt or support people who are going to challenge them, even though we still have like a year before there's going to be any other elections. If I was in any of those positions after seeing what happened with the shakeup with Kevin Wallace and Senator McCourtney, I would be afraid of voters. And I just think that that's the way it changes. We've got to get people activated and running for office that aren't going to be co-opted.
Well, and I'm 100% on board with you, but I think what's happened this year is that because don't forget, fear will turn into, if you back a bear in a corner. So this is what I think is going on right now. They came out of the box ready to, as you like to say, throat punch everybody who wasn't on their agenda, because if they came out strong like that, like they did on the very first day, they just bullied poor representative, poor, I hate to say that, he's not at all, he's a big man, take care of himself, but I'm just saying they bullied him, Representative Kennedy, just bullied him. I mean, you go back and you look at the video and you're like, how does anybody, how old are you? 4? I mean, it's crazy. And it just seemed like right out of the box, the day I sat through, that's the first and the last time I've been up there this year, because I'm like, I've got other stuff to do. I'm far behind after a fire. I mean, I'm not going to go up there and sit and listen to them pontificate about stuff that's never going to happen. But it just frustrates me. I mean, I feel you, Amy, because it's like, at this point, what are we going to do? They came out of the box wanting to, rip out, I guess, the grassroots people who upset their little apple cart. And that's what it just seems like it's been all year, all legislative session so far.
Yeah. And for example, we're trying to put oversight and accountability in Title 69, which is the statute where the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority is given their powers since the 1950s. And we put common sense things in, like the OTA will provide real notice to citizens who may be in the path of the turnpike. Like, send us a letter, or we would like the abutting properties within 1,500 feet to get compensation for damages in an urban turnpike setting. Under negotiation, we would like a debt ceiling on the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority. You know, they're $3.1 billion in debt right now. And the Grand River Dam Authority has a debt ceiling at $1.4 billion, which is still a lot of money. So why can't we do that? And, oh, how about the toll increases? Are we proving that the turnpikes are a viable solution? But when you get down to it, and what took me so long as a civil engineer to understand when I first heard about this in 2022 is that the Turnpike Authority is nothing to do with turnpikes. It's nothing to do with transportation. It was transportation for the Turner, the transportation for the H.E. Bailey, and maybe for the Will Rogers. But everything else has been a loser. The Kilpatrick was about economic development.
Yeah.
And so
100%.
3 of their 11 turnpikes make enough money to pay for their whole system. The Gilcrease used to be a free road. How the heck did they get away with that? And so we're just putting in these little common sense citizen protective measures, and they can't even get a read. And so you know that something is happening, obviously, in the back door. And for example, we had this great abutting property bill that got usurped by the OTA, and they went in and changed everything that was in our lawsuit to the Supreme Court, because they know if we take them back to the Supreme Court, and we have some people, specifically Judge Winchester, is removed from the court or leaves the court, we would win, because we were legally correct. We just got skunked from 6-3 at the Supreme Court. And so it's amazing to me that they're admitting that they didn't have location authorization, and they're admitting that they couldn't build these new alignments because of the bonding issues within the statute. And they're actually putting that language in on top of our language to say, oh yeah, well, we're compromising. Well, no, you're actually just admitting you were completely wrong legally. And so it's just, we again, when we want to do an initiative petition, maybe, but they did an initiative petition in the 1950s when the citizens of Oklahoma voted that after 30-year bond payment is done, the roads would be free. So they voted for the Turner, the Will Rogers, and the H.E. Bailey. But then in 1955, the legislature just took the initiative petition language and changed it. And instead of being, when the bonds are paid off, the roads would be free, they created cross-pledging. So no turnpike could be, no turnpike had to be economically viable because the system would pay for it. And so, now in the legislature now, there's a bill to change the way legislative petitions are done. So they're limiting how many voters can vote on an initiative petition. And I just feel like every time the citizens are trying to make a voice, and we have this groundswell of people interested in eminent domain now with the farms and ranches, the green energy, now turnpikes, and we have all these people talking about initiative petitions. So the people in charge, the government, are just trying to make it harder and harder for the citizens to actually do something. And so,
and let me say one thing about that, because I do see both sides of the initiative petition issue. I think there is something happening where the big counties of Oklahoma are speaking for the whole state. So I do see both sides, but just honing in a little bit on like the green infrastructure and the windmills and all that. That is subsidies. That can dry up. That can go away. This perpetual pork that they have with this cross pledging, it could literally go on forever. And so I think that we should take the J.J. Humphrey approach and just start making fun of them. And we could put a piece of legislation in next session that renames Oklahoma Turnpike Authority the Oklahoma, Little Dixie Mafia. Like, what do we call them?
Well, and I want to ask this question. So you brought that up, Amy, about cross pledging. Can you explain that? Because I don't understand what that is.
Sure. In the 1940s, before the Federal Highway Administration had their money, the United States wanted to, or the state of Oklahoma wanted to have a roadway between Tulsa and Oklahoma City. And so Turner, the governor at the time, came up with a way to fund it, and that was through revenue bonds. So they sold revenue bonds to pay for the Turner Turnpike, and everybody loved it. And they said, once we pay these off, the roadway would be free. So it's a 30-year bond, so they pay them off and it'd be free. A couple years later, they said, oh, wow, this is a really good way to get roads built. Let's do it again. So then they wrote, we're going to do the H.E. Bailey. And again, the people said in the legislature, they said, okay, yeah, you can do this, but when you pay it off, it's free. And then they did it one more time. They said, oh, this is so awesome. We want to do this again. We're going to do the Will Rogers. And so they built the Will Rogers with revenue bonds and said, once it's paid off, it'll be free. And then in 1954, they created the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority system. So it went from individual turnpikes and statute to a system. And it was a vote of the people. And they said, we'd like to create a system and create roads with revenue bonds, but once they're paid off, they'll be free. And the people said, yes, let's do it. And then the legislature took that system that the people had created with their vote and said, oh, by the way, as long as we keep our bonds and we keep our bonds and we don't pay off our bonds, the system will stay as a turnpike system, and one turnpike, so the Turner Turnpike, could pay for another turnpike. So I can build a Chickasaw Turnpike near Davis, Oklahoma. That makes $2,000 a year. Not quite that low, but it's low enough. It's it's just a little stick. It doesn't connect anything. Now the Turner can pay for that. Okay, now I'm going to create the the Indian Nation Turnpike. It only makes $900,000 a year, or 900,000 something. It doesn't cover itself. Oh, I'm going to use the Will Rogers to pay for that. And then they created the Cimarron, the Muskogee, and a few others. And they did not have to be revenue positive because the system would pay for them. And so that's a big problem, because now you have a perverse incentive. Just go build and build and build. And yes, exactly. Turnpike cabal. Yeah. So you just keep building and building and building, because your engineering consultants and your contractors are making 10 times what they make when they build an ODOT road, Oklahoma Department of Transportation road, which is federal dollars. So you have the OTA making everybody rich. They're financiers making millions of dollars off the bond sales. They're real estate developers who they're giving the heads up, hey, go buy along this roadway because it's going to be commercial property someday. That's up by you. We killed a bill that would have put a turnpike right near your house in Luther a couple years ago. And people on the board had property that were bought by you. And so what cross-pledging does is there's no checks and balances, because they don't have to make sure that one roadway is viable. They just said, build it. And the Supreme Court gave them carte blanche to do whatever they wanted in 2023, as long as they have an entrance and an exit to an existing turnpike. So now the will of the people is completely usurped, and the OTA has become untethered from the legislature and Title 69, in that it doesn't matter where the location authorization is in that statute. They just build wherever, and it doesn't matter if it makes $0 because they don't care, because the real estate developer guys have made money, their commercial contractors have made money. All these other people who are keeping their mouth shut about how they're doing it illegally are making all this money. And the people, we can talk about the kickapoo, the people are getting offered 50% of what their house is actually worth and are basically homeless because they can't find another property.
And I hate to interrupt you because you're on such a great role, but you mentioned the kickapoo.
Right.
And I want to make a point here for those people who don't live in this area. We already had, I think it's 177 that went, that basically did what the kickapoo did. I mean, it goes right down into Shawnee, right up to 40. I mean, all you have to do, I can go right down here 2 miles, get on 177, go right down to I-40.
We already have Route 9. We already have Route 102. We already have 240. Why the heck do we need a 59 miles of the East-West connector, Tri-City connector, and a Southern extension? That's not
Well, ladies, it's a jobs program for the executive branch.
You know, that's funny that because you said that before, and that's, I mean, I don't know how you can argue that it's anything else. I want to throw this comment up, though. OTA lies. Turner Turnpike has now become State Highway 344, but it's under construction. How is that financially beneficial at all, or even efficient? And Laurie said private enrichment, again, off the taxpayer's back over and over. And I don't know what happened to Whitney. She just disappeared.
Someone knocked on her door.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Because I was like, what just happened? Because we had problems this morning, a whole lot too. So I'm like wondering if if there's an accident on purpose. I'm just wondering. So I gather that you're a civil engineer.
I'm a civil engineer, yes.
Okay. So we're going to have you, with your consent, obviously, we can't just follow you around. Have you back on to talk about, because you said there are other ways to do planning, city planning, other than what they're doing. And I think that's kind of what it boils down to, a little of that, because we're all sitting here frustrated, angry. We know what's going on. We know that our government isn't working for us. We know our judicial system isn't even working for us. So how do we, I mean, we're getting to the point where, sorry, I mean, I'm just going to say this. I mean, I'm just quoting Thomas Jefferson, where we have to water the tree of liberty with blood of tyrants. And I don't know exactly what that looks like, but they're giving us no choice. I mean, if you're somebody who actually kind of pays attention. Now, if you don't pay attention, don't know how to fix that. But if you're even kind of paying attention, you know things are not working for you. So I can't figure, I don't know why these keep doing this. Anyway, I think the best way to fight these people is to educate ourselves in what's actually supposed to be happening, so that when we go to them and they say, well, we're going to do blah, blah, blah. And we go, no, you're not doing that. You're doing this because this is what you're supposed to do. This is what the Constitution says. This is what the law says. This is what, whatever. I think we've got to educate ourselves well enough that you just shove it in their face and go, no, we're not doing your game. We're not playing your game. I mean, thoughts?
Yeah, so I agree with you. And I felt like we had so much momentum, and we have so much momentum. For example, one thing that we've been pretty disappointed in is that the Attorney General could have stopped this latest bond sale.
No.
Because in statute, the Attorney General is the Oklahoma Turnpikes Authority bond lawyer, right? So he had the ability, especially since the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority is under investigative audit for the last 2 years, which is what he called for in March of 2023. He had the ability to say, you know what, you're not going to go get $1.3 billion until we look at your books, which, you know, if anybody with any kind of math background looks at their books, is going to say some very weird things that are happening in their registries. And I really do feel like Cindy Bird and her team are going to look really carefully and are going to come out with some really good recommendations. And I would think, if it were me looking at it, I would think there might be something criminal in there.
But I'm really afraid, because after, you know, hearing from Cindy Bird, even the interview you guys did, she can come back and say they're misappropriating funds all day long. If we don't have any legal structures to hold people accountable, then what difference does it make?
Exactly. And that's been the frustrating part, because we've spent 3 years just looking at all of this data and we're so far in it. But I agree that we have to educate. But here's why the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority has been so successful in paving over Oklahomans for 7 years, because
Paving over. We need a meme for that. OTA paving over Oklahomans. I love that. I'm on board with that one.
Because they pick on persistently impoverished areas typically, and they do it with lightning speed. So in terms of the Kickapoo, they came in, no one had any notice. They had people gave people letters and had their houses torn down in 91 days. Okay. So then they offered them less than half of what it was worth. 44 out of the 104 property owners took them to court. And they got, well, in some cases, 600% of the original offer. So, but before the Kickapoo, it had been 10 years since they had done part of the Kilpatrick. Before the Kilpatrick, it had been another 10 years. So people get all upset and all mad, and then they forget about it because they get
tired. 51st dates with the OTA.
Yeah, it's like, so our job as Pike Off OTA and the Oklahomans for Responsible Transportation is to have this grassroots advocacy group that doesn't go away. If we can survive for even 5 years and 6 years and 7 years, and we can, I think, make inroads. It's just that all these government agencies seem to come in and really devastate a community, and then they go away and they hide and everyone forgets. And then they come back and they don't give, there's not enough time a lot of times for people to mobilize and actually do something. We just were very fortunate that we had the bandwidth and the funds and the expertise in our group to sue fast and hard and delay them for 3 years. But no one in 7 years has been able to do that. And so it's exhausting, and it's exhausting fighting government. And that, I think people just stop and go back to their lives, and then the next group has to restart. And so I'm hoping that we have enough people now that are going to stay with it. Now we have the Women's Homes, the Ranch and Farms, the group that is pretty big, and a lot of other groups that we're joining we're making headway. So I'm fingers crossed.
And I also think that having the established infrastructure that we've created over the last 3 years, when this new South Extension plan was announced recently, these people who are now going to be directly affected, they have something to lean into. And I'm proud. I hate to say that we have to meet these people under these circumstances, but I'm proud of our group for at least having that basic structure in place so that we can try to do everything we can to, like you said, educate people, mobilize them, and just make sure they don't feel alone, because it's very, very emotionally draining trying to go up against the state when you didn't ask for any of it.
Well, I think, so I guess, let's see, I got started, in 2008. right? And I think about all of the people that started out in 2008, and it was probably more like 2006 or 7, but when Obama got elected, people, I mean, they just came out of nowhere. You know, what we call the silent majority showed up because they thought, oh my gosh, this isn't the way America is supposed to work with this. Wait, what's going on? Everybody woke up. We had these huge groups of people coming to, you know, we created the Oklahoma 912. There was the Tulsa 912. We had a bunch of different groups. We had all kinds of groups coming. We pushed back against all kinds of things, got people elected. And here's what happened. In 2010, that big red wave showed up, tossed out a bunch of people, got these Tea Party conservative people in there. And then what's the first thing they did? First thing they did was decide that Obamacare was great and they didn't really need to do anything about it after they were elected to go up and save us from socialized medicine, which is what's killing all of us today. And really what COVID was, I think, engineered to do is to crash the system that they already knew was, you know, just teetering on the edge. And yet we elected a bunch of people that went up there. Do you know how many people I know now that are still involved now from back then?
None, probably. Yeah.
Because they're like, wait a minute, what am I doing? I have a life here. I have kids. I have other stuff to do. I don't have time to do this when nothing happens. You can do everything you can to make something happen, and then nothing happens. And it's so crazy that we're in the same situation today where so many people have, you know, come out and supported, you know, we got McCourtney out, we got Wallace out. I mean, we did so many great things as grassroots, and it still wasn't enough to overcome the entrenched leadership up there that only works for lobbyists, that only work. I was talking this morning, what we have here. Well, hold on one second. In the middle of it, let me get Tanya in here. Political animals need to be drawing more and more attention to the OTA and all the elected officials benefiting, literally beating the drum and turning the tide on social media, relentless attention to this. We're all tired of paying tolls and watch people lose their property. And I do agree with Tanya, and she's been very active. I mean, we do, part of the reason we have this show is to just call attention, you know, to what's doing it. But we got to get people to share the videos too. You know, we got to get people to get that information out there. So, you know, I'm not going to quit just because I'm a witch, and I'm not going to sit down when I'm told to sit down. So there's that. But we've got to get, it's like what you said. Oh, well, get on if you're going to make comments, you little, look at that. It's our co-host making comments instead of getting on. But he's right. I mean, they do count on that, because the people that I know of that were active then, they haven't gotten back in. There's a new group that's come up, and there's a new group of people that are getting involved. But those people in the past have just basically said, you know, I'm not interested in doing this again. And I fight that constantly. I'm like, look, I've done this plenty of time. I don't need to keep doing this. Somebody else needs to do it for me. So, you know, I get it. But we're not going to get anywhere if we give up. And we're certainly not going to get anywhere if we just decide that everything is, well, just deal with it. You know, when it gets to you can't just deal with it when it gets to the end. I mean, if we're having this much trouble right now, what do you think we're going to have? What kind of trouble are we going to have when they have even more power?
Yeah, you can't, in our case, you can't unlay the road, right? And that's what the Supreme Court, when three of them figured out that they screwed up in 2016, when they let the kickapoo go through, one of the justices turned to our lawyer and says, well, what if we were wrong? You know, what happens to the kickapoo? And he goes, well, you can't unlay the road. So they knew. So it's just been interesting to watch.
Yeah, that gill crease is ridiculous. I accidentally ended up on it the other day, and I was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, and they used federal dollars for that through a TIFIA loan from ODOT, and then paid it back on some weird financial map.
No kidding?
There's some of our people. We have a retired CPA who's been going through all this money, and it's kind of ridiculous what they get away with. But I feel like you do too. Some days I say, well, what's the point, And then you get emails, from people that are, despairing because they're going to lose their home, and you get emails from people that are 85 and been on their land and you say, okay, I got to fight because these people they can't fight without us. So it feels like a community, and all of my best friends right now are in this group because everybody is focused on fighting this one huge part of being an American citizen.
And we try to be really supportive and graceful with our nonprofit, whether it's the leadership or just people who support, because everybody needs to take breaks. You will lose your mind if you don't take breaks and have some of your own family time. And, like Amy says, like some of our best friends are the people in this group because one, you're going through the same thing, but it's also just because they messed with such a great group of people with so much talent and skill. And I think they stepped in a hornet's nest whenever they started this whole project. But for anybody who's new to this, because we do have a lot of new people who are very upset about what's going on with the new location, rely on your neighbors and become friends with people who are going through it, because you're going to need to take breaks and you're going to need to have support. And that's how we keep making it at least difficult for them to be this big of jerks.
Yeah. And so, Jenny, just so everybody that's watching understands, they proposed a southern extension that went from the Kickapoo down to Purcell. Now, they used number 28 in the statute. So that's Title 69, Section 1705E, in case anyone wants to look it up, number 28. And it's a location authorization. So as a representative democracy, the OTA is supposed to go to the legislature and say, I want to build a road here. And then the legislator is supposed to ask the people that it's going to affect, do you want this? That doesn't happen, but that's what's supposed to happen. And so every number 1 through 35 has a location. And number 28, the location describes the H.E. Bailey Spur. So it looks like an L. It comes down south of Tuttle, goes down past Tuttle, goes around and L's into Route 9. That's what the statute said. Each location authorization by statute can only describe one location. So I don't know if I'm backwards or forwards on here, but the southern extension is like this. The southern extension looks like this. It doesn't go south and east, right? The southern extension that they want to build just goes like this, and it crosses the Canadian River at a different spot than the location authorization went. So the Supreme Court justices all failed cartography and said, we're just going to give the OTA, well, they can do whatever they want. They used Chevron. They used a Chevron doctrine, which says you give broad leniency to the OTA. That's
but that Chevron doctrine's been pitched out. It's gone.
I know, but it was too late for us. So if we relitigate it, we could probably win. But the whole point is, the people had no idea they were ever going to get run over by a turnpike ever in their lifetime because it wasn't even in statute. Yeah. So now you have, like, when it was originally going to come through my living room, I was like, and I'm a civil engineer. So when I first bought my house 20 years ago, I looked at everything. Where's the expansion? Where can I, be the least disruptive? All this stuff. So because I wanted to be on property. And so that's why it came as such a shock to me. But now think about it. That now the Bureau of Reclamation told them, you can't come over our land. You're crazy. We're not going to give you permission to go over fee title land. So now the OTA has to move it. So they're moving a spot that's not even legislatively authorized. Now they're moving it west. So 2 miles west. So now a whole new set of people are being affected. And that's why we had the town hall 2 weeks ago. And there's so many people going through the emotions that I went through 3 years ago. And to Whitney's point, we have a community now. When they said they were going to come through my living room and 600 other people's living rooms, we had nobody. We had to form a group, and now our group is here to help them. It's crazy to me that they didn't know that there was a turnpike. We've been fighting this for 3 years. They only live 2 miles from me. But then you think about it, if it doesn't affect you personally, does everyone get involved? And that's one of the problems a little bit with our society, is that we think it's someone else's problem. So Whitney is not even affected by this. I mean, her father's property was, but she personally is in this because she thinks it's the right thing to do, which is amazing. I was personally affected by it, so it makes sense that I was involved. But now that I'm not personally affected, I'm still involved because I would want them to help me, and I feel like the community should help them. And we all, if we're stronger as a community. So I'm just hoping that this is a lesson maybe for people, that just because it doesn't affect you personally, like you should.
Well, I'm gonna stop you right there on one thing. First of all, I want to read this because we've got a viewer on Rumble. This is so funny. I want you all to get up, get out of your chairs, and go open your windows and stick your head out and yell, "I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take this anymore."
We should.
Dude, I don't know if you guys, there was a movie, I think it was in the 70s, called Network. And it was a great movie. I remember actually watching it, but there was he was a newscaster that was sick of the corporate news that was coming in. All the same stuff that we're mad about today was this movie in the 70s. And he was mad about the corporate news coming in and taking over. And he kind of lost his mind. And one day he went out and did that. And it's been kind of I think some of us oldies are bringing that back because it's funny, and it was kind of sort of funny in the movie. And you just think, that's what I want to do because I'm just so mad about the whole thing. But getting back to what you were saying about people not being affected, here to me is the bottom line. We don't understand what freedom is. We think we live in the most free country in the world. Do you know that I think it was there's a metric for freedom in the world, and one of the nonprofits does it. And the last time I saw this metric for freedom, do you know that we were number 13 in the world for freedom? The United States of America, using this freedom metric. We're number 13.
That's not good.
The US of A, number 13.
Well,
And I think the problem is because people feel like we've gotten it's cultural, like you said. It's the way we're bringing. We haven't had a world war. My parents went through World War II. My parents had to collect newspapers and glass and get cards, little stamps. I've got one in my safe, a little stamp card that said when you got to go to the grocery store to get your fill in the blank. We today get pissed off if we have to wait 5 minutes at McDonald's. We have no idea where our food comes from. We don't grow anything. All we want is the government to take care of us. We don't really care about the education of our kids so long as they're playing sports and we can go to the basketball game or see my kids cheering. We have lost the bottom line of what's important in this country, and nobody understands what freedom is. You ask them, are you free? Well, yeah, I can go to a game anytime I want to. I can do anything I want, They don't care. They're not paying any attention. They don't understand. And trying to make them understand when it's not at their doorstep. The OTA isn't trying to take their land, or they're not trying to open a business and finding out that the government keeps taking this money and this money and this money and this money. While on the other hand, they're turning around and giving it to this corporation and this corporation.
Or this country.
yeah.
But also
nationally, yeah.
To be a little bit empathetic too, I also think that we are all working so hard to survive and to pay our property insurance and pay our health insurance and pay for our mortgages and pay for our loans. And we're enslaved by the debt that is making us overwork. And so I understand why most people wouldn't get involved with politics, because those people in that capital do not care about everyday people. I would say 90% of them don't care. And they are so far removed from reality that it's absolutely sickening. So I understand why people don't get involved, but I do think what you're saying is right. We're distracted by the bread and circus, and we're not seeing what's really happening. And it's an extraction economy instead of a productive economy.
Yep.
Oh, I never thought about that, but yeah, that's absolutely the case. And if you can't, Amy, what I was trying to get to the point was, if you can't get people to see they don't even have the liberty that they think they have, to get them to see anything else is kind of a, almost a moot point. You know what I'm saying? It's tough. Melissa had a really good comment. She said it's exhausting, but we can't go silently into the night, which is what the OTA wants. I've been the squeaky wheel here in Berry Hill. Amy and Pike off OTA has been a huge help. We have many open meetings violations. OTA took hundreds of our homes. We have major problems still 4 years later. We have to continue to stand up. And good for Melissa.
Yeah, she's been great. She's our contact up in Tulsa, and we've been trying to expand. Whitney and I have been up there to talk to their women's group a few times, and they got royally screwed by the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority. I mean, everybody does, but it was a free road that they were promised just a bridge fix. Then all of a sudden they turn around and they ripped out the free road and put in more lanes and made people pay to come in and out of their homes. So there's only one way in and one way out. I mean, it's just ludicrous. And the fact that no one is standing up is nuts. Now, I'm not from this state. I moved here 20 years ago, but Whitney is really Whitney is really good about giving me books to understand the history. And I'm reading the history of Oklahoma and I'm going, whoa, like it is so insane. Pennsylvania is corrupt. Okay. Pennsylvania Turnpike is totally corrupt. And Pennsylvania, there's lots of problems in Pennsylvania. Some people call it the land before time because it is just Oklahoma is its own sort of crazy. And they say they're right now we're like the reddest of the red, but it's just as corrupt as it was when it was the bluest of the blue. When you have such a super majority, everybody's fighting for power. And like you said, you got all these people elected and up there, and they're like, oh, wow, I can make money. Okay, forget it. Forget what I said on my campaign trail. I'm just going to look out for me. And and that shouldn't be the Oklahoma standard.
Well, and the other problem we have is that a bunch of Democrats have just become Republicans because they know at this point in time the I vote MAGA people who only care about Trump and don't worry about what's going on under their feet, but are more worried about Trump's going to solve all my problems. Those people will vote for you if you've got an R because they're like, MAGA, R. And there are a whole bunch of them out there. I mean, it's shocking the number of those people that are out there that are just going to vote based on that. And these people know that. So they just change their affiliation. Well, I'm really a Democrat, but yeah, Melissa says amen. They just want the name but it's true. I mean, they know they're going to get elected. It's the same way. I don't even know what I am anymore because I'm not a Republican. I'm certainly not a Republican that those people are. I can't even use the word conservative anymore because everybody uses the word conservative. Okay, well, explain to me exactly what that means to you. What is conservative then?
It's not what the Oklahoma Republicans are. For sure not.
Well, I think the one tenet we could all agree on conservatism is the tenet of small government. Small, limited government. That's where the word conservative comes from. You conserve the government to the people. That's conservatives. That's where it comes from. But yet you ask these people that, I'm a conservative. I have a gun. Well, good for you.
That's fear-mongering politics. And it's sad that that's so effective because it is. But I do think that what we've seen, especially with the recent presidential election, people are disillusioned with mainstream sources of information. And they're starting to pick up more on some of the alternative media sources, whether that's Substacks or podcasts or whatever. And all you have to do is get a certain amount of people. You don't have to get the majority of people. You have to get a certain amount of people that are influential enough to sway the tide. And I really see it in our lifetime. I joke and say I'm a revolutionary because I don't feel like either party is identifiable with most, rational people who just have common sense.
Well, we need to start the common sense party, but then they would take that over and make it something else. So it's kind of like, we can't win. But I here's the thing. Were you guys able to get anything done? I mean, do you have any bills still alive? Can you?
We do. We have one.
Oh, for Pete's sake, you had like 14.
Yeah, I know. But this one should be bipartisan.
Wait, 1 out of 14?
Yeah. Yep, we do.
Guys, that's not even an F. It's not even on a scale.
I know, but we got skunked in the Appropriations and Budget Committee in the House. And yeah. Okay, because it had to go to the Transportation and the Appropriations and Budget Committee. And you want to talk about orchestrated? Yeah, that guy is orchestrated.
But don't forget who puts committee heads in their place.
I'm guessing Kel Kelly did it.
Yeah, Kel Kelly. Yeah.
Leadership.
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't think people understand that, but the leadership, because people are like, oh, it's the Speaker of the House. Oh, it's the Senate Pro Tem. They don't understand the power that these positions have over the people because it's huge. Once you stick a committee chair in there that's going to do whatever you tell them to do, they're not going to do what you want them to do.
Right.
So Melissa wants to know which one is still a go.
We have House Bill 2095, which is Title 51. It's not even the Turnpike statute, but it's for requiring state agencies to reply to open record requests within 30 days. That's a good one. 30 days. I mean, now this bill right now doesn't have any teeth. We're hoping to get more teeth on it, but right now, Oklahoma can just ignore you. And anybody, like the governor ignored me for 14 months. And then 3 days before the Supreme Court made their decision on our case, I get an open record request with 1,000 pages in it. 3 of the pages which defined every single statute and showed that number 28, according to the OTA, was actually the H.E. Bailey spur. But I got it 3 days before the state Supreme Court made their decision. So he held on to it for 14 months. But now it says if it passes, they have to comply within 30 days, which is what the federal government also has.
All right, give me 1 second because there was I'm not kidding. I have 109 email in my email box, and mainly it's Oklahoma Senate meeting, Oklahoma Senate press release, Oklahoma Senate, Oklahoma House. That's what it is. There was a bill that was passed that had to do with open meetings and Open Records Act. And I'm trying to find where it is.
That may be the one she's talking about from Representative Menz.
It might have been. Hold on just a second. The thing that got me about it, because I'm pretty sure it was our AG. There it is. Here it is.
2209.
No, this is another one. 2163. Pfeiffer comments on passage of open records legislation. Did you know House Bill 2163?
No.
Would statutorily create a public access counselor position in the state attorney general's office to review open records requests of state agencies when they've been denied or delayed. So let's just think 1 second. Is that an increasing government or decreasing government?
I think it's increasing it, and it's putting like a protective layer, unless it has a way for them to sue the state or to get legally force them to, then it's kind of just a stupid oversight committee that's not really going to do anything.
Well, and it would be one position that
Yeah.
would not do anything. And so I think, but you know what? I think it's instructive for us to talk about this, because I think people, even let's say they do sign up, they know how to go and sign up to get, information, press releases, bill, whatever. They know how to do it. And then they read this and they go, oh, wow, it would statutorily create a public act. And they're like, this is great. And you're like, okay, stop. What does it say that it's going to do? Did it say it would do anything? No. Did it say it was going to spend money? Yes. Did it say it was going to increase government by adding a position? Yes. So what do we say about the bill? Probably a net loss for people, right? So that was the one that I was thinking of. So the other one is going to require state agencies to have to respond in 30 days.
Correct. And if they don't, what we wanted to say, we wanted to have more teeth. We wanted to say, what's the accountability? So what happens if they don't? Right now, the citizen has to sue. We want it to be, we wanted to somehow codify what's going to have to happen. We're not sure how that's going to work and what the wording is going to be, but I feel like a time limit would be a good start. I
think if we went back in, a couple of 100 years and we would say things like, if you don't get the records out in 30 days, you're drawn and quartered in the public square, that'd work.
Yeah.
We get people actually doing something then.
Sure. I mean, there are some agencies.
So Clay Stairs had one. And yes, it's always more government, less freedom, Gracie. Yeah. That's correct. Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. Our federal government isn't great at this either, because I'm pretty sure they just have to do a reasonable time. I applied for a FOIA to one of the agencies recently, and the email I got back said, I'm so sorry, you're number 48 in line. So I don't think anybody's really good at being transparent and accountable.
So like it was like being at Brahms and you got a number.
Yeah.
I mean, there are certain things that should automatically be out on websites, right?
Yeah.
Public agendas, public meeting agendas, public minutes. If it's a state agency, they should have their budget out there. And so it's been interesting the last 3 years. When we first started, you had to open record request everything from the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority, and they would redact everything. They would skip files. We all have full-time jobs, and that's what's so frustrating about this whole thing.
Wait, you mean you have to work?
Yeah, we have to work. I mean, I find this to be so interesting and very fulfilling, but it doesn't pay the bills. And so I actually have to, have a job. But you have to, if you submit an open record request, you have to remember then, oh, I got to check on that.
Yes.
I got to remember.
Yes, you do.
Oh, what did I ask for 6 weeks ago? Oh, they sent me 7 of the 8 things I asked for. And the one thing I really wanted, they didn't send me. And so you have to just really stay on top of the open record request. And when we first started, we got nothing from the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority. And now, because we sued them twice, now they're putting things out online. Not everything, but we don't have to open record request quite so much, maybe 30% of what we had to still, but even the design plan. So when a civil engineer does a plan and a government agency says they're going to come take your land through eminent domain, they're supposed to do an environmental impact study, a historical archaeological study, a biological impact study, a wildlife study, a human impact study. They're supposed to put this out for public comment. You're supposed to have a discussion. They're supposed to put 3 routes and then a no-build option. They're supposed to talk to the municipality, say, do you even want it? And there's all these things.
Really?
Yeah.
If it's federal, yeah.
If it's federal.
Yeah.
And so there's just a long, drawn-out bunch of requirements that they have to go. So there's so many issues. I mean, we don't have time to get into all of them, but with the federal agencies being usurped by the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority, like if you were building a 7,000-foot bridge over the South Canadian River with an endangered species in it, do you think you might want to do an environmental impact study? or get a permit. Oh wait, just pull a permit. You think you'd pull a permit? You
No,
would have
no,
to.
they wouldn't. No.
Exactly. You would as a homeowner. But the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority, nah, no problem. I'm going to build this. I'm like, okay. So they're drilling piers into the sandy alluvium down into the bedrock. They are going to impact the stream and the meandering stream that's moved 1.5 miles both ways over the last 45 years. And their argument to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is that their bridge will not impact the free flow of water. It will not cause flooding downstream or upstream. It will not affect the Arkansas River Shiner. It will not increase the total dissolved solids. It will not put microplastics into our water supply. And the U.S. Army Corps engineer goes, okay, we believe you. And we're going, okay, I have to get a permit to put a bathroom in my house. You know, what is going on? And so it's just been a very interesting, from a civil engineering perspective and a transportation policy perspective and an economic perspective, what this Oklahoma Turnpike Authority is able to get away with no oversight or accountability.
Well, but I want to there are two comments that I want to throw up right now, especially after what you said, because they're incredibly germane. So Melissa says, our county commissioners and cities sell out. And Howard says, the Cleveland County Commissioners meeting was a shocker for people as to how horribly broken our political systems are. Multiply that by hundreds and you have our state capitol and phony bills. Yep. So it goes back to, and I hate to do this, but it goes back to the education system. We bitch and complain and moan about the education system. We all know it's broken. We're like 48th or 49th, depending on who you talk to. You can just talk to kids coming out of schools right now and you're like, right? So we all know that the system is broken. But if we had 5 people sitting in the school board seats who actually gave a rat's butt about what was going on and weren't put there intentionally by the superintendents who just want to have little red check marks from the board so they can go do whatever they want to do and spend whatever they want to spend, this would stop. It all is local. Everything is local. For people to say, well, it doesn't work, we need to have a law about this. No, that's all bull crap. It's because you won't get your fat rear end down to a city council meeting and sit there and make them do what they're supposed to do. It's the same thing with the school. So don't even tell, well, they won't do. Well, get out and get somebody else elected. My God, people, there is a function to government. And guess what? The government closest to you is the one that's going to protect your liberty the hardest because it's closest to you. That's your city council. That's your school board. If you don't get involved in those, and if you don't stand up on the board once you're elected and say, no, not doing that, that's not what we're doing, then nothing is ever going to change. We have the mechanisms in place. We're completely able to do this. But if you don't decide to do it, it doesn't get done.
I agree. And we did a really good job with our city council. We voted our mayor out. We voted 2 of the council people out this last time because they just weren't with us. The Cleveland County Commissioners did us a huge disservice the other day. They signed a resolution with the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority without even letting the people speak. We didn't even get to speak. And they voted a resolution and pretty much admitted it was for economic development. And, and so we hope that we will vote them out when they come up. But it's very difficult.
Yeah, because see, that's another thing. How many years have these county commissioners sat in those seats?
No term limits.
But the people are the term limits.
Yeah. Right.
The
when
people
tell
are
me
the term limits. You go down there and go, you know what? Voting against you.
When people tell me you're wasting your time, you're fighting the government, I think of what you would say, Jenny, that we are the government.
We are.
Yeah. Yeah. It's,
People don't get that. We are the government. That is who we. Why would it say a government of the people, by the people, for the people, if it wasn't about us, the people?
Yeah, I agree. I think that a lot of people get scared off, and I won't speak for everybody, but I think that the monetary, the campaigning is what people don't like. So, talking to some of the state representatives in the last 3 years, it's about $100,000 to get elected in the state Senate and the representatives, which is crazy to me.
But that's not everybody. That's the crazy thing. So my friend Molly Jenkins got elected, and I think they just had a really great ground game, and they had a lot of people who were going out and knocking doors for her, and so it is doable. The only problem is and you were just talking about how you went down and talked to the ladies, the South Tulsa Republican ladies. Those ladies, man, I'm telling you, they'll go wherever a good candidate is in the state and go knock doors for them. And that's the other thing. You don't have to say, well, I don't have anybody up for election right now. I mean, go find somebody that's up for election that's good and walk for them.
Right.
Especially with the useless legislators we have right now and the fact that we don't have an election coming up. I think that's where we really need to focus attention for the next, 12 months or however long, getting into other small counties, small municipalities, and just doing exactly what you just said, like activating people and, getting them ready to put some better people in these positions when it is time. And if we don't start that process now, I mean, we won't have enough time.
And that's true. And that's the other thing I think people don't get. You can't just go, oh, I think I'm going to go ahead and run tomorrow. I'll just sign up. I mean, it doesn't work that way. You have to have, oh yeah. Melissa says the Republican women of Jinx are walking for Brian Logan. Absolutely. Because Brian Logan has an election, southeast part of the state. It's a special election that he's filling for Senator Roger Thompson, who was the Senate chair of appropriations, who got mad because he was told he was no longer going to be appropriations chair anymore. And so he just quit because you got those. And so now we're having to stage an expensive election, but it's probably better he's gone. So that's good. I don't know. Sorry, I got off on the crazy train there. Pardon me.
Well, just while it's on my mind really quick, I just want to throw in a couple little plugs. Definitely check out any of your viewers that haven't went to our website, pikeoffota.com. We have a ton of great information there. We have ways you can sign up for our newsletter and get into Amy's Substack. And then, if you want to find any merch or donations or all that stuff, that's all there. And then this coming Monday night at the East Public Library in Norman, from 5:30 to 8, we're doing just a come and go meet and greet informal deal. There won't be speakers or anything like that. We just want anybody who is, potentially new to this whole issue that is going on, especially with the New South extension. We want you to feel like you're part of the community. And so we will have people set up, like I said, at the East Public Library in Norman from 5:30 to 8. Come and go as you are able to. If you'd like to come meet with us and just visit, and we'll share contact information and just make sure everybody feels included, because it can be very isolating to face something like this.
Well, and I'm going to bring a goofy thing up just to make a point. So when we had the fires out here, golly, it's been a couple of weeks now. Isn't that weird? I guess a week ago today. Oh yeah, a week ago today. It was, or no, 2 weeks ago today.
2
Wow,
weeks,
man,
yeah.
Time goes by, doesn't it? Jiminy Christmas. Yeah, because I was like, okay, no, last week we were reinstalling fencing. But we have a group of for whatever reason, it just happens to be that there's a group of older ladies that are kind of out in this area, and we have coffee on Tuesday mornings at 9 o'clock, and we all get, sometimes there's as many of us as 10 that come to our little coffee. But the great thing about it is we know our neighbors. And so when that fire went up, I was on the phone. Where are you? What do you know what's going on? I mean, having a group of neighbors, a group of people that you can count on is, I don't even know how to tell you how important it was to know that those neighbors were there. And then, you know, when a couple of us lost our homes, you know, we were right there to help for that too. So, I mean, getting together is so important, because it's easy to look at something like this and go, oh, you know, Amy and, well, we know Whitney and they're really nice. But if you go and you meet you in person and you get to talking, you know, it forms a bond, and those bonds are important, because those are the things that the legislature is hoping we don't get. They don't like us walking around with our political animal shirts on, because we're a group that way, and we're forming a group against them, right?
Yeah.
And it makes a difference, because 1-on-1 and maybe a toss-up, but 5-on-1 is not a toss-up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the community is so important. I think, you know, talking about what COVID did, it isolated everybody, put the fear, no one wanted to be around anybody, and took kids out of schools and put the masks on the face and did all this thing. And then that's the whole point. They wanted to rip the community away so you couldn't mobilize and come after what government was doing. And the community that we formed is a lot about not only helping the people cope with what's happening, but also about making huge changes in our state. And I think that all the volunteers over the last 3 years have done a fantastic job. We wish that we weren't still fighting it. I think we thought that we were going to win 2 years ago, that Supreme Court case, but now we know what has to be done, and we'd love for more people to join our cause all across the state.
Absolutely.
Well, Amy, you don't need any more subscribers. You've already got over 1,000. That's great. Good for you. So you guys sign up for Amy's Substack. There's my email address, my personal email address in there. So I'm just going to do it right there.
Yeah, just do the free. Just do none. Go all the way to the far one yet. Do that one.
You there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, and Jenny,
yes.
I have to tell you, that video that you did the night after you guys put the fires out on Facebook, I probably watched that like half a dozen times, but the next morning, it was Saturday morning, I think. I woke up and it was like 5 o'clock in the morning, and I got my phone and I saw that video and I just started bawling. And my husband's like, what is wrong with you? And I was just like, you don't understand. I was so worried. She wasn't answering. And it was just, and my sister lives out there by you too. And it was, it's just terrifying what happened. But I'm so glad that you guys were okay. And what an amazing family that you have to just have everybody drop everything and come fight fire for you.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, I do love my family picture of us all standing at the driveway in our sooty, dirty clothes. Yes, I mean they were great. And yeah, it was a deal. Holy cow! One of these days, I'll probably get, it's one of those crazy things where it's such a huge freak out that it takes you a while to really come to grips with it. And one day I'll come to grips with it. I don't know. Maybe.
But thank God you had community, because like you said, and like Amy was emphasizing, you have to have people that care about you around you in those terrible situations.
But that's absolutely right. I mean, I ended up, my neighbor was not at her home. And so when I called her and I said, "Oh my gosh, Becky, where are you?" And I said, "Are you at home?" And she goes, "No, I'm in Edmond." And I said, "You've got to get home now." And so thank goodness she got home, and she called her husband to get home, and they started driving little circles around their house with their tractor. And and their house was saved. So yeah, but you can do the same thing in the case of in case of OTA, get together and, so 5 are so much stronger than 1.
Yeah, I think one of the problems why it's gone on for so long, for example, after the Kickapoo happened, people were so devastated. Actually, when we called them to find out what happened, no one wanted to talk to us. No one wanted to explain the history. No one wanted to give us anywhere to start. So we started from ground zero. We threw people back into the 40s and said, find everything you can, every single newspaper article, every single research paper, and find everything you can. And so that's really been, I think, our biggest strength is having all these researchers find out every bad thing that the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority has done, so we can help make sure that we don't repeat history. And so now that not everything, we're trying to get some things still out to light. But now that most of the things out to light now, hopefully our children and grandchildren and future generations don't have to deal with the absolute crushing stress of having an authoritarian government agency come down and say, "Oh, I'm going to take your house for a roadway that's not needed, not justified, and not wanted. And oh, by the way, I'm going to make money on it. So, screw you." And now that we have all this information and we've armed them, I think we have to get someone, like Whitney said, we have to get someone to do something about it. We know it. Now they can't gaslight us because we know exactly what they did and what they do and what their business model is. Now it's about getting people, like you said, elected that have the backbone to take a stand for the people, by the people, with the people, to make a change in our state. And my goal is to rid the state of the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority. I
will join you in that goal.
Yeah.
That's our Doge goal.
Yeah.
Yes. You've got a question, actually. Could you discuss more about the new route OTA has decided on in Norman? What does this mean for citizens? What's the relationship with the OTA and the new Norman City Council?
So the new mayor is absolutely 100% against the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority. The old mayor said he was making backdoor deals to try to get the resolutions and the service roads to come through, which would take additional properties. The city council in general is with the people. There are still some that play both sides, so we're working on that. But the new route has to move at least 1 mile to the west of where it is now. We don't know where it's going to be, and they say they're not going to tell us till the end of this year, which again I think should be illegal because they're holding people hostage, gun over their head.
What?
Yeah, so they haven't even announced the route. They just say we're moving it at least 1 mile west, and it could be 2 miles west, but we don't know. It's going to be somewhere between 48th, and they haven't even told us where it's going to be between. We think it's going to be somewhere between 48th and 72nd because that's where the fee title lands end. But think about, so I've been living for 3 years. I wake up every morning and the first thing I think about is the turnpike. I go to bed at night. The first thing I think about is the turnpike. And now you got another 10,000 people like, well, am I going to lose my home? It could be when they decide the route, they're going to start going like gangbusters unless we can stop them. And that could be 6 months they'd be out of their home. So,
and what if you built your home custom for something that's going on in your life that other people aren't dealing with? What if you have a disability? What if you have, something that is so cherished for you that they're not going to compensate people for that kind of stuff? And they're not going to go and look at this from a human rights perspective. They're not going to care if you are in your 80s or 90s and you can't move physically. I mean, there's so much angst involved with this. And then think about, okay, my fence just blew down, but if they're about to take this, do I fix the fence? Do I get the roof repaired? I mean, the disinvestment that will occur is astronomical.
Yeah, for 3 years, I haven't put siding on my well house because I refused to spend money on something that was going to get, torn down. And what I think your viewers have to understand too is the federal government uses something called the Uniform Relocation Act, which is a way to try to make people whole. They lay replacement costs. They find you your unique property. They help you with your fencing. They help you with your cattle or horses or whatever kind of animals you have. So it's terrible, but you're kind of made whole with the federal. OTA doesn't have to do that. OTA says, oh, we offer fair market value. So if you have a single wide mobile home on 2 acres, they're going to offer you what, 30 grand? Where are you going to go for 30 grand? You can't go anywhere. So it's like these people are not only stressed out because they're going to lose where they live. And like Whitney said, maybe they have special things on their property, but they know that the OTA is not going to take care of them and they're not going to be able to move somewhere as close as they are to town for that cost. And even with us, we would have to go 20 miles outside of town to find the property that we have right now for the price that they would pay us for this house. So it's very unsettling.
Not to mention, if you have to take off work to go look for a new place, you got to take off work to move. What if you were close to your doctors and close to your schools and close to all those services and basic needs that we have? I mean, there's just so much that I think the people that make these pragmatic decisions, they're not considering at all.
And they're ripping apart communities, right? So what they say is, you want to know the fastest way to get rid of a community you don't want? Build a roadway through it. So they picked on Black Tulsa with Highway 244. They've decimated Rochester, New York with Highway 81 that's now being removed. They crushed New York City through Harlem with Robert Moses, the founder of the Turnpike authorities. They took tens of thousands of people's homes. And so what they're doing is they're crushing the community. So they're crushing East Norman's rural community. They're ripping neighbors away from each other. And I think that's
yeah, but don't forget. I mean, and we can call this conspiracy as much as we want, but a conspiracy usually only, what is the definition? Wait 15 minutes. I think part of the thing is, they want 15-minute cities. They want people in cities, and people are much more controllable when they're chattel inside a community, a little teeny tiny area like that. And they want to hurt those of us who live in rural America. They want to make life hard on us. They want to stick windmills on our property. They want to get solar farms. They want to do everything they can to disincentivize us from having what we want to have, which is a community by ourselves away from the city where we don't have to deal with that. They don't like that because we're out here being one of the greatest things. And I said this once before, but I'll probably keep saying it. One of the greatest things that my oldest son said to me after the fire, he came over to me and he threw his arm around me and he goes, "Oh my gosh, I'm so grateful you and Dad are so self-sufficient." Because we wouldn't listen to anybody and we stayed and fought the fires, managed to save our house. And they don't like people who are self-sufficient. It makes them uncomfortable. They know that they can't control us. So I think one of the reasons why they do this in these rural areas is to disincentivize, disenfranchise us, make us feel, like at any minute we could lose our property. So but if we move into the city, we could be safer.
Right.
Just my 2 cents.
Yeah. And it's super frustrating to see the future and what it looks like if this happens and know what's going to happen. So, if you build infrastructure that you can't pay for, so they're going to build this infrastructure, right? And then the city of Norman is going to have to bring water, electric, gas, extra roadways. So roadways, if on their interchanges, we can't handle it with a single lane roadway. So now the city is going to be on the hook in the county for wider roadways. Now you have traffic lights. We estimated that all of the infrastructure just to maintain, to have it's like $250 million. So that's over like a 10-year period. So where's the city of Norman and the Cleveland County commissioners going to come up with that kind of money? So they're not. And so that then you bootstrap the future generations when you build all this infrastructure that you don't need, and you can't pay to maintain it. You have the roadway condition that Oklahoma has. Our roadways are some of the worst in the nation. And I know that because I just drove to Florida and back over spring break. You get into Arkansas and the roads are quiet. They're nice. You go through Mississippi and Alabama and Tennessee. It's not like, it's so frustrating. We have over 12,000 center lane miles of roadway in Oklahoma, and we do a very bad job of maintaining it.
Because you can't. It's too much road.
Too much. Exactly. And then in the cities, like you were the mayor of Luther, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I don't know if you know what a stroad is, but a stroad is when you have 2 lanes. It's perfectly fine handling the load, but they say, oh, we're going to build a developer is going to come in and build a subdivision. So the city's going to be on the hook for widening that road to take the new traffic. And so now you have a 4-lane road or a 3-lane road, and a stroad is, you want people to go slower through your neighborhoods, but you make it wider so they actually go faster, and they hurt people crying across it. So now we've got all these stroads and all these cities, that little cute towns. Like Norman used to be a little cute town with these nice roadways with tree lined, and now they've widened everything and people are driving 75 miles an hour, and it's just, they've made it so unwalkable in the city, in the center city, and they've made the driving so dangerous that it's just the antithesis of how you really want to plan a community. And there's no wealth generation because people are just driving by it. So that's what turnpikes are, to drive by the city, not to stop in the city. And so it's so frustrating to watch everything get paved over with no real forethought on what that's going to be like 25 years down the road. They just want their money now. You know, they want to make their money now and then blow town.
Well, yeah. Isn't that the whole game, the money? Melissa says, bring in Amazon like OTA and our county commissioners did. We have so much traffic and more accidents than we've ever had now, thanks to OTA. I mean, it's making things bigger and more convenient versus making things smaller and slower. And, you know, when the problem is that we're bumping up against a whole bunch of people that are being brought up to be on this dopey thing, which brings them everything they want in milliseconds, they just have no ability to wait, and they don't want to.
Yeah, I tell
plus we tell them they can have everything they want, you know, at any time. So
those iPhones right there, those computers in the hand, that is the downfall of America. I'm telling you. And
100%.
And I tell my students, I'm teaching a class this semester, and they cannot go 2 minutes without picking up their phone and looking at it. And then I ask a question that would require critical thinking, like not just, hey, Siri, what's this? And they're trying to find it on ChatGPT and answer. I'm like, no, you have to think. And that's the frustrating part, where it's like we're creating robots. So I have a lot of students that are working for these companies that are building the turnpikes, and they have lost their ethical moral compass in that they're just see it as a repetitive, I'm going to build this roadway, I'm going to do this thing, I'm going to make this money, and I'm not going to look outside of, you know, where I am. And I just, it's very, I've been doing this for 20 years, and I never until this point questioned my profession, my choice of profession. It's just so frustrating to see the state of what's happening in the student population and the working force.
But it's not just you. It's not just you look, my husband's a computer programmer. So is my son. You look at what they do, and we spent years studying the state longitudinal database system in Oklahoma and how it connects to all the federal data. We would go into these chat rooms with these, because we were doing some major stuff. And we'd go into these chat rooms with these people. They don't see it as a problem because it's their job. Because if their job was a problem, why would they have that job then? Right? So they don't even look at it like that, Amy. It's not, I mean, they're like, well, but I went to college to get this job, or I'm going to college to get this job. How could it be bad? Everybody told me I had to go to college to get this job. And so now I'm in this job. How can it be bad? They don't get, it's the same thought process that happens to so many of our legislators. They think, oh, you know, I'm going to get up there and I'm going to do, well, they get up and then they decide that what they've what has happened is that people have put them there to do a job. And to do a job means that they need to write laws. And if they can't justify the fact that they've written this law and they've got this name on a bill, then there's no reason for them to have been there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So we have this problem with getting people to understand that just because I have the job doesn't mean that everything about that job is super. Doesn't mean that everything about this job is great because I studied for it or because somebody elected me for it or whatever. It all goes back to thinking skills, like you just said, and getting kids to actually think and have critical thinking. But you can't do that because in schools, what do we have? We have them on computers. We let them get into all of this stuff all the time. And so they're looking for chat GPT. They're not going, hold on a second. I have quite a bit of RAM up here and I'm only 20. I've got a lot of hard drive space. I'll bet you I could come up with something if I just let that computer, this biological computer, do a little bit of work. Bad. Don't know how to fix that other than to tell people to homeschool their kids. Homeschool your kids.
Yeah.
Spend time with your kids. If you're going to have kids, they have to be worth your time. Do that.
Yeah.
Okay, ladies, is there anything, because we're running up on 140, which is pretty good. We did great. And we ran the gamut of the discussions today. Go over the Monday night thing one more time.
So Monday night at the East Norman Public Library from 5:30 to 8. It's come and go, very, casual, relaxed, just giving people an opportunity to stop in and meet some of our team and make some contacts, just basically aiming to build some community and some solidarity and make sure no one feels alone. And again, that's the East Public Library, 5:30 to 8, anytime you want to come.
And get on our website, pikeoffota.com. And you can sign up for our newsletter. We have a YouTube channel, and I have a Substack that I write. Hopefully it'll get a little bit more frequent now that spring break is over and the semester is going to wind down in a couple of weeks. But we'll let you know everything you need to know that when we find out. And hopefully we'll get some more people to join us and pay attention. And we're going to put out some calls to contact your legislature. And so we need some help with that from around.
It's really easy to find their website too, guys. It's just pikeoffota. It's not hard. I mean, if you just do that, it comes up. And the same thing with your Substack too, Amy.
Yeah.
Okay, ladies, I enjoyed having you as usual. It was very nice to meet you. Amy, we'll have to have you on again to have that discussion about that we were talking about, because I feel like that's a good discussion to have. So, well, what could we be doing instead of what OTA is doing? And Whitney, I was thinking my cat was going to gonna get into the shot here in a second. I was going to go, you better get yours. All right, ladies, thank you for being with us. And guys, thank you so much for being with us this afternoon. I know it's kind of we had a great audience this afternoon. So please take what you've heard and really think about that. Get involved with OTA, get involved with us. I mean, we're here every Wednesdays and Friday at 9 a.m. We usually have guests. If we don't have guests, we'll talk about something interesting and rail about things. So and we're happy to have you chime in. So please come back and join us again, 9 a.m. on Wednesdays and Friday mornings. And you can, I forgot, go to our website, rope2.org, and you can find information about the interviews that we have and more research when I have time to do it on our website. So have a great weekend, and we expect to see you Wednesday at 9 a.m. So thanks for being with us. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you.